A warm hello and welcome to our email marketing webinar brought to you by Charities Aid Foundation. I'm Julie Simpson and I look after a number of charity products here at CAF, including CAF Donate, our online fundraising platform that helps charities accept direct debit, card and PayPal donations online. Charities Aid Foundation is one of the largest charities in the UK, with a mission of helping people and businesses give to charities and helping charities to grow. If you want to know more about us, we have provided our contact details at the end of the webinar, including our Twitter handle @CAFOnline. But without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to our speaker today, Matt Collins. Matt is the Managing Director of Platypus Digital, who offer digital marketing campaigns and training for charities and other companies. Email marketing is underused, but has massive potential for charities. And Matt will share some fantastic examples and case studies that show just how powerful it can be. Matt will also be asking you a few questions along the way, which you can answer on your screen. And as ever, there will be a question and answer session at the end. Matt, please take it away.
Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. Hello everyone, my name's Matt and I'm going to be taking you through this webinar, how email can drive your charity's fundraising. Email is a fantastic channel. We do a lot of email marketing work. It's an area that we're fantastically interested in, and it is far and away the one area that charities could be making more of, not just to drive their fundraising efforts, but to drive their awareness raising and campaigning efforts as well. So let's dive straight in. So this is me, in case you're wondering what I look like. There I am, and I work for Platypus Digital. We're a digital marketing agency working for charities and other organisations doing really great work. And we do some great stuff around email as well as SEO and PPC and lots of other types of things as well. So we're hosted by the Charities Aid Foundation today, as you know, who offers some great products, CAF Donate among them, and we'll be talking a bit more about that later on in the webinar. So let's dive straight into email marketing then. So email is, believe it or not, still more popular than social media. It's outlasted every single social media network. There's plenty that have come and gone, like LO and a few others as well. There are still more emails sent every day than there are Facebook posts and tweets sent combined. So it is still more popular than social media. It's still growing. More and more email addresses are registered on every email service provider every day. It's something that has got such universal popularity that most people will have an email address, even if they're not on Facebook or on Twitter. They will have an email address for a number of different reasons. And the big difference with email is that it's an action-focused channel. So where social media is often about keeping up with friends and family and browsing the internet for news and other related interests, email is an action-focused channel. People are used to getting emails and taking some kind of action as a result of getting them, whether they be buying a product, taking a campaigning action, or making a donation. So let's just talk a bit about the basics and the kind of context that charities are operating within at the moment. So fundraising preference service that's upcoming and data protection laws means that the need for permission-based marketing is essential. So that means that you can only contact people asking them for support when it comes to campaigning or fundraising where you have their permission to do so. And the legislation around that is getting more stringent, so this is something that's only going to increase. And email marketing is good to go on that front. Email service providers require you to have the permission of people who are subscribed to your list in order for you to send them email in the first place. And that means that email marketing is good to go and is almost certain to be compliant with the upcoming legislation and any future guidelines around permission-based marketing. And it's also the case that charities need to get their message out to more and more people and to make better use of the data they already hold for this purpose. The need to acquire new supporters and to acquire new donors is only getting stronger and more important as the days go by, and that means that not only is it a more competitive marketplace, as it were, so that means that charities are vying for the attention of the same people and trying to get donations from the same audiences. That means that the data on the people that you already have, so that's your supporter list, your email list, your social media following, you need to be able to do more with less and get more from those existing lists. lists. So email marketing is a fantastic tool on both those fronts. It's compliant with data protection laws and guidelines and legislation, and it's also a really unused unused gem, as it were, some discovered gem, and a fantastic opportunity when it comes to that. So we're just going to run our first poll now, just to get a little bit of context around the size of the organizations that are on our webinar. So we just wanted to ask you guys what your organization's approximate total income was. So we're going to have the poll will come up in just a moment, and your three options are going to be whether your income is between 1 million and 10 million, between 100,000 and 1 million, or less than 10,000. So we'll just give you a few minutes, or a couple of seconds there, just to complete the poll, and hopefully we'll see some results from it as well. Okay, great. So most of the results have come through. We see that 42% of you guys have an income between 1 million and 10 million, and 50% so far have got an income between 100,000 and 1 million, and a much smaller percentage then have an income less than 10,000. So we're talking mostly to what would be known as sort of small to medium-sized charities. So that's really good to know. So you in particular then have a really good opportunity to get a lot out of email marketing. You're likely to have decent-sized email lists if you've been around for that amount of time to sort of get to that level of income, and you're also likely to have a dedicated supporter base. You know, some of the really, really large charities, sometimes when they have that many supporters, it can be difficult to get the message out over a long period of time, but you're going to have very dedicated supporters, so that's going to be a really good opportunity for people listening to the webinar to really act on when it comes to email. So let's talk a bit about conversion rates by traffic source. So when we talk about conversion rates, it's not just about people getting the message out there. It's about what they actually do as a result of reading that message. So what percentage of people are actually going to go on and take an action that really matters. That might be taking a campaigning action or making a donation. So we're just going to look at email compared to other traffic sources. So you can see that 4.25% for email, and then 2.49% for search, so that's people Googling you or related topics, and just 0.59% for social media. So what that means is that not just have you got a lot of people on your email list, you might have 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, so you've got great quantity. You'll also have great quality as well, because that means that 4.25% of those people are likely to go on to take significant actions when it comes to your charity. Now, obviously, it's up to you to identify what those actions are and to make sure that you're creating content that inspires people to take them. But email marketing, just as a channel, means that they're more likely to take that action than if they'd come from other sources. Email and e-commerce, that's the websites that are busy selling us billions of pounds worth of products every year, like Amazon and all the other online retailers. Email plays a really huge part. As the years have gone by, the income raised just from email marketing has absolutely skyrocketed just in the last 6 or 7 years, and it's only going to grow even further as time goes on. 23% of revenue comes from email in e-commerce. So that's almost 1 in 4 transactions online, whether you're buying shoes or batteries or almost anything else. Almost 23% of revenue comes from the email marketing that company has sent out. If nearly a quarter of a charity's online income came from email, then that on its own would be an enormous piece of success. 24% of marketers across all industries who segment their lists experience higher revenue. This is one of the first things that you find out kind of in marketing school, that it's really important to divide your list up into separate sections by interest. So that might be a segment for fundraisers, maybe a segment for campaigners or people that you've met at events, and then tailoring the content based on what that segment is likely to be interested in. Just the act of doing that means you'll experience a higher revenue from your email marketing. And 42% of customers say that email is central to retention. And that means that if they're receiving email marketing and they've already taken an action in the past, whether that's campaigning action or fundraising action, 42% say that the emails they get from that organization are absolutely central to retaining them as a donor or a campaigner. That means the emails you send out aren't just about acquiring new donors and acquiring new campaigners, but about making sure that the many that you already have are continuing to be engaged, continuing to want to take action, and want to take action in the long term. They're not that likely to check your website every day. They are not that likely to even see all of the messages you send out on social media, but they are very likely to be seeing your email and taking actions that retain them in the long term as a result. So let's look at what happens when someone subscribes to your email list. They aren't just filling in a box, they're raising their hand. And if you think about it, they're sending their details to a stranger over the internet. Now that requires a huge amount of trust from them as individuals, and that means that they have trust with you and your brand, your organization, and they're saying not just that they want to hear more from you, they may want to do more as well. So that's not just they want to hear about your messages, but they want to be more involved in the organization, they want to volunteer, donate, campaign, or maybe even become a service user, and we'll talk a bit more about that as the webinar goes on. And they're saying they want to engage with you. So never underestimate how big a commitment someone just subscribing to your email list actually is, and how much more you could draw from that commitment for your cause. So email is your secret weapon. That's something that we really like to emphasize. Out there at the moment, for your charity right now, there are supporters who want to know more. There are service users who need timely, personalized help. There are campaigners who want to drive meaningful change. And there are fundraisers who want to raise more money. Most charities have lists of thousands and thousands of those people, and other charities are really benefiting from email right now, and you're going to hear a bit more about them today. We really believe that charities can drive their charity marketing using email. So what's the typical approach then to email marketing? Well, generally it's to round up as much information as you can. That's news stories, staff leaving updates, fundraising campaigns, fundraising events, asks, whatever. Pack it all into a 10 to 15 story newsletter. So, put everything in together, not necessarily all related. Send it to everyone on the list. That's not segments at all based on interest or sources of subscribing, and just hope for the best and send everything out and just see what happens. Maybe do that once a month or every 2 months when you remember. That's the sort of typical email marketing. Probably taken by, I'd say, about 95% of organizations. Why doesn't this work, though? Well, it's focusing on what you want to say, not what your supporters want to hear. You may think that it's really important to tell people about the news in the organization, the updates, or whatever they may be. That's not to say that someone really wants to hear about that. And if you take the time to ask them what they do want to hear about, you're far more likely to get better results around donations and campaign actions or whatever your conversion happen to be. It's using the scattergun approach, so that's just saying if we push enough content out there, surely something is going to stick. Well, again, that's not good marketing, whether it comes to email or any other type. You really want to think about what people want to hear about and make sure you do your best to provide them with that. And you just have to ask yourself, really, does your audience actually care about everything you're saying? Or do you just feel like you should mention it? With good intentions, of course, you're sending stuff out there with thinking that people might want to be interested in it, might want to read it. But do they really care about it? Or do you just think that it's going to have to be something that you need to mention? So I'm going to run another poll now, and what we just wanted to find out was we wanted to just get a bit more information about what your main challenge is when it comes to email marketing. So I've said a bit about the sort of context of email. So what's your main challenge here? Is it that you're not sure how to approach it? You're not sure of the rules or regulations around it? You've had a trial ready, but you haven't had much success, or you've got out-of-date email templates. So if you want to choose one of those options there, you're not sure how to approach email, you're unsure of the rules or regulations, you've had a go but not had much success, or you've got out-of-date email templates. We'll just give you a few seconds to answer that. Okay, so the results have come through then. 41% of you not sure how to approach email marketing, just 10% not sure of the rules or regulations. Fully 38% then are saying you've had a go but not had a great deal of success, and 11% saying you've got out-of-date email templates. So it looks like the two main challenges there really are not sure how to approach it. So hopefully we'll help you a bit with that today. And you've tried but had low success rates. So have a think about the particular questions you've got, and we'll have a chance for questions at the end. If you've tried particular things but not had much success, try to think of a particular question for that, and we will come to it towards the end. So the life cycle of an email. The emails go through a very particular cycle, and there's different actions attached to each stage. Let's have a look at those stages now. So the first stage is someone actually seeing your email pop up in their inbox. For that, you need deliverability, so you need to have a good email list for that. People need to be familiar with you as an organization, which hopefully they will be already. Things like emoji make a difference here, because if you have an emoji in your subject line, believe it or not, then you're really going to stand out in a text-based inbox, so you're more likely to have your message seen. So that's something to try. And you would measure that using delivery rates, and you would tend to do that within an email service provider like MailChimp or Constant Contact. And you do need to use a service provider like that to measure the impact of your emails at each of these stages. Most of the content tips we talk about will work if you're just using something like Outlook, but you won't be able to measure success in the same way. The next stage is actually opening the email. That requires a strong subject line that makes people want to read it. And again, trusting you as a sender, you would measure that using open rates. So that's the percentage of people that you sent the email to who've gone on to open it. The next stage is to have the email read. For your email to be read, it needs to be sort of scannable. It needs to be mobile friendly. We're going to talk a lot about mobile in a little while. And it needs to have strong copy. You need to have words that convince people to actually read it, to give them a sense of urgency, and to actually want to take an action at the end of it. And you would measure that through click-through rate. So if you have a link in the email to your website where someone's going to actually take the action, what percentage of people who were sent the email actually took that action and clicked through? And then people would actually have to act on the email having read it. So for that, you need a clear call to action and, again, strong copy. This is a message we're going to sort of emphasize again and again. And you would measure that partly through click-through rates, but partly through conversion rate as well. So that's the percentage of people who've read the email that are actually going to go on to take action having read it. Again, that could be through a donation, through a campaigning action, or anything else that's of substantial value to you as an organization. So here's a sort of quick summary for the different stages: seeing the email, opening it, having it read, and for someone to actually act on it. You need to have a deliverable email with a decent list. People need to have trust in your organization. The quality of the content that you send out, so that's like really inspiring words, whether that's in the subject line or on the email copy itself, and with a very, very clear call to action, and just one call to action as well, where possible. We really encourage organizations to send out emails that are just about one thing and that look a bit more like the emails that you would get in your normal inbox. It's got one topic, it's got a reason to take action, and it's got a clear instruction for the people who receive the email to take that action. And those are the ways in which you would measure the effectiveness of those different stages. And again, really important to have an email service provider like MailChimp or Constant Contact or Campaign Monitor or even Mailer, which is a very popular option for charities. So what makes a great email? What are the contents of a fantastic email? Well, we're going to talk about that now, and we're going to look at lots of great examples of what constitutes a great charity email. So here's a summary there. We've got strong subject line. That's really important because it's one of the factors that people take into account when they're deciding whether to open the email in the first place, as well as the name of the person that it's from, or the name of the organization, more likely. Short, concise copy. Most people are reading your emails on their mobile devices, on their smartphones, and a clear call to action, just one if possible. Trying to make your email stand out. Again, that can be through really exciting or controversial or shocking copy in some way. Because, if you're listening to this, I very much doubt that you think you don't get enough email. It's going to be hardly anyone listening today, or even anyone that you work with, who thinks, I could just use some more email. Could really use some more emails in my inbox. So you need to be able to stand out in some way, to rise above the noise in some way. Needs to be mobile friendly, as we mentioned, and ideally it's going to have some personalization in there as well. So that's making use of the data that you've got about your subscribers, whether that's just their name, could also be their location, and in particular what they're interested in. The more personalized the email is, then the more likely the recipient is to take an action as a result. So if you think about a letter that you get and you think about the envelope, then the email and the envelope contents are one of the things that you will take into account as to whether you actually open that letter. You might look at where it's likely to be from, who sent it, was it sent to me particularly, does it look official or does it look friendly? And an email is no different. It has envelope contents as well. So for an email, there are the subject line, the friendly from name, and the snippet. Here's a little clip of an inbox that has emails from a number of different charities. So the friendly from name, that's simply the name of the person or the organization that the email is from. And you can see in this example that the friendly from name, RSPCA Shop Online, CreateSpace, Greenpeace, etc., is simply the name of the organization. That's a really good approach to use because the recipient's likely to know the name of your charity if they've subscribed to your list, and therefore they're likely to trust it. Other approaches are including the name of a person who works at that charity, which is good because it's more personalized. It looks like it's come from a person, although sometimes it's bad when lots of different departments in the same charity are sending emails, and the emails are coming from lots of different people, and it's also bad whenever people leave organizations. So there's different advantages and disadvantages to that approach, but do try and get your organization name in there because that's where the trust is coming from. The subject line is obviously important here. A couple of examples are CreateSpace June newsletter, breaking shell delayed by Kai activists, and Diabetes UK. Diabetes Week is here, and we bring you all the ... So those are examples of subject lines. It's really important with your subject line to try and describe the contents of the email and to make the content sound interesting and clickable. So having something like CreateSpace June newsletter, that's obviously exactly what's in there, so they're describing the contents, which is important. But the Greenpeace one is more of a news-based one, something that's happening straight away. This is breaking news, shell is delayed by Kai activists. And then the snippet is the next bit. The snippet is simply a preview of the email, which is usually the first sentence or two of it. And often it's automatically generated in email templates. As you can see, it has been in the CreateSpace newsletter. It's the next line. It says, click to view this email in a browser or forward to a friend. You'll see the same for the Diabetes UK and MenCap versions. But Greenpeace have changed that to just the very beginning of the email. It's dear Fran, earlier today, dozens of volunteers, etc. That's a really big opportunity there. You want to make sure that that's descriptive of the contents and gives people a reason to actually go on to open the email, and not to just be automated content like view this email in a browser or forward to a friend. So here's a few more subject lines then. We've got something of scope. This is about to get awkward. If you haven't seen it there in the awkward campaign, it's really fantastic. We're going to talk more about that. RSPCA campaigner, urgent, 3 days to save the Hunting Act. There's a real sense of urgency in that. You know exactly what it's about, and you know that you have to take action now if you're going to be a supporter of the organisation that sees itself as a campaigning one. Got Care International, just 2 minutes of your time could help South Sudan. Again, you're making the action sound easy and you're making clear what the action is going to achieve. That makes people want to open it if they know they're not going to have to spend too much time making the difference, so they're really setting the expectations out as much as possible. And from Great Ormond Street Hospital, Fran, it's your last chance to win a KitchenAid. Obviously, it's really different topics. You know, we've got e-commerce, we've got campaigning, all of that range of services and activities that charities typically carry out, and the different approaches. So they're using time limits to increase the sense of urgency, and they're really making it clear what the email is about. Try to avoid the intriguing subject lines where it's you'll never guess what's in this email or something like that are designed to increase intrigue. Sometimes you get more people opening them, but when people realize they've been duped in a way, then they're less likely to take the action that you've described. So try and describe what's in the email as part of the subject line. So it's a quick exercise then just for you to try, just where you are. Just grab a pen and paper or open a Word document or whatever and write 5 subject lines for an imaginary email to one of your audiences. So try to tell, don't sell. You know, tell them what's in this email, and try to include verbs in at least 2 of them. So they could be doing words like read or learn or take action or something like that. So it should just be one email that you could send out today because you know the topic so well. But it's going to be 5 different options for a subject line for that email. Now, the reason we get you to do 5 is that the more you write a subject line, the easier it becomes. Usually the first idea that comes into your head is good, but if you think of a few different options and a few different ways of rewording that, then you're more likely to get something that someone is likely to actually open. So that 5 minutes or so is really 5 minutes well spent, because it means more people will open the email, more people will take action as a result of seeing the contents, and therefore you're going to drive more actions for your charity, whether they be fundraising ones or campaigning ones or whatever it is that you are trying to make happen. So then, again, going back to the letter metaphor, the elements of content, so this is where you've opened your letter and you're actually looking at the contents of the letter. They're the copy, the call to action, and the image. So that's just the words you're using in the email, what you're actually asking people to do, and the picture that you decide to use. Here's an example from ActionAid. You know, this is an email promoting their, I believe, Live Below the Line campaign. And it's really short, really succinct copy in there. The call to action is, will you join them? So it's, you know, in a question format. And the image is really big, you know, the full width of the email, and it's really representative of the type of work that they're trying to do. So it's the nature of the campaign is in there, the nature of the actual cause is in there, and it's really vibrant colors and summarizes the emotive contents of the email. And in particular, the copy is really short. So if you're seeing this on a mobile device, then, you know, you're not going to have any problems just quickly reading the email, getting the gist, and knowing whether you want to take action there and then. So going back to scopes and the Awkward campaign, we're looking at call to action buttons. Now, buttons are really important because of the huge open rates that you tend to see on mobile devices and how much that's increasing every year. The majority of supporters now will open their emails on a mobile device more than a desktop device. So you need to have really thumb-friendly buttons. And if you just have a really short bit of text as your link, then that's going to be less thumb-friendly and harder to click on. This button here is great because it really stands out because of the color. It's the full width of the screen, so it's impossible to miss. And it's got really intriguing call to action copy, which is watch and cringe. And you can see it's a video that they're promoting, the image is above, and it's an image of a woman shaking the hand or attempting to shake the hand of an amputee, while some onlookers look on horrified at the awkwardness of the image. So again, a really excellent image, really summarizes what the campaign's all about, really emotive as well. You know, there's a real sense of awkwardness that just comes through. The very word cringe is a really well-chosen word, and it makes people want to click on the button and find out what the campaign is all about. So it's a really good example of a call to action button. And you'll see good call to action buttons are part of most mobile templates within MailChimp or .mailer or whatever as well. Here's another example from Amnesty International UK. This is more of a campaigning email where they're asking the recipients to take action, telling Michael Gove to protect human rights. So what they do is they start off with just a very short summary of why the action is required, what the context is, the call to action button, which is again really high contrast. It's a light text against a dark background, so you can't miss that. And it's very clear what they want you to do, which is to take action. And the great thing is with Amnesty emails that below that bit, they're going to go into more detail about the context, more detail about the need for the action, and more about what you can do. So if you really trust the organization, you've got a quick summary at the start there. You know exactly what they want you to do, so you're just going to take their word for it and go ahead and take the action. But if you want a bit more convincing about why you need to do so, then that copy, that sort of long-form copy, will be found below. Now, strong copy, we've talked about this already. This is something really to emphasize as much as possible. Try to make the copy strong and bold in your emails. You know, most of the people that you get are just, or that you get on your list are just like you. They get way too many emails, too many of them are boring, too many of them didn't need to be sent, and you have a fantastic opportunity as a charity to send them exactly the opposite, something really exciting, really shocking, and really bold. Here's an example then from the breast cancer campaign, which leads with the words, if you could save the lives of 18 women in your constituency every year, would you? Join us to stop women dying from breast cancer. And again, just the very idea of that is a really shocking kind of sort of makes you sit up in your seats and take notice. So leading with something as strong as that in your email is going to get way more results than if you take a slightly softer approach and, you know, just talk a bit about stats and talk a bit about, you know, the sort of more gentle side of things. Try and go for the kind of shock factor within reason, of course, but really try to make your email stand out in that way. Keep it brief, so cut out any unnecessary words. So if there's words that aren't really important or don't add to the story in your email, cut them. I think it was Winston Churchill who said, I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long letter instead. This is really absolute when it comes to email marketing. It can take a lot longer to write short copy than it takes to write long copy, but it's well worth the time. Long copy might be quicker to write, but it's easier to ignore. People look at it and think, oh, it's too hard, I'm not going to pay any interest in that. And use active and actionable language. Try to avoid the passive voice where things happen to things, and use the active voice instead. A good example of the active voice is the cat sat on the mat, so the person or the thing did the action, and avoid something much messier sounding like the mat was sat on by the cat. So it's much less clear, it's much less obvious, so you want to take action rather than have action taken. That clear language makes it really easy for people to understand what you're talking about, nice plain English, and it makes them much more likely to take the action that you want them to, whether that's donating or campaigning or whatever it happens to be. So we're going to run our third and final poll then, and I'm just going to ask you a bit about what your main communication channel for fundraising is at the moment. So we're thinking about that kind of mass fundraising, if you like. Do you mostly use telephone, direct mail, email marketing, events, or your website and social media? So what's your main communication channel when it comes to fundraising for your charity? Is that telephone, direct mail, email marketing, events, or website and social media? We'll just give you a couple of seconds to answer that question. Okay, so results have come through. Telephone just down at 3%, very interesting, as telephone fundraising is obviously taking a really big hit at the moment in a legislative sense. Direct mail up at 41%. With email marketing is down at 28%. Events fundraising 32% and 41% for website and social media. So a really interesting spread there. Obviously direct mail is really important for charities, and that is really changing as time goes on. So you might want to think about moving your direct mail more towards the digital side of things, so building capacity around email marketing and website social media. But interesting that there's really good spreads and really good kind of financial management, if you like, to not put too many eggs in one basket. But good to see that email marketing is a big part of that as well. So maybe thinking a bit about the types of products that you offer, the types of calls to action to make email an even bigger part of your fundraising. So just a quick bit about personalization. The most typical way that people personalize the emails they send out to their lists is to use the first name of the person that they're sending it to, typically in a Dear Matt or Hi Matt kind of way. There are other ways to do personalization, including using the area that they live in, which usually makes a big difference because it seems much more relevant. The other way of doing it is the Shelter example. Now, Shelter sends some really fantastic emails, so we'd encourage you to get on one of their lists or to make a donation so that you can see what I'm talking about. They lead with 472, Abby, so that's the first name there. That's how many calls for help our expert helpline advisors answered yesterday. So it's a really unique way of talking. Now, it's a bit more conversational, a bit more like the way you would actually talk to an actual person that's sitting next to you. That conversational tone of voice is going to get more results than if you're talking much more formally. And again, it makes your email stand out, it makes the copy stand out, and it leads with a sort of shocking and interesting fact that make people want to go on through the email and to take the action at the end of it. Another example then is to use it within a sentence that's not sort of salutation, so Dear Matt or Hi Matt, but to use it in a headline and to again make it part of a natural sentence that you might actually say to someone in a conversation. So we need your help this Christmas, Fran, is the example we've got here. And again, that really stands out because it's call to action, it's a needs-based sentence, and it's much more conversational. So people are more likely to take the action at the end of the email if they see that it's relevant to them and if they see their name in large letters, to be honest. Most people are very aware of their name, and when you use their name in conversation, it kind of makes people sit up a little bit. And the same effect happens in email if your name and your other personal details are being referred to. So here's an example of an email that we sent where we tested the subject line. So we sent the same email but with different subject lines to random groups of people to see which one performed better, which one got more people to open the email. Who can an abused child turn to for help was the first one. And then, Fran, will you show a vulnerable child that someone cares? And just by using someone's first name in the subject line, we've got a 10% higher open rate on that email. So that's way more people reading that message just from testing whether using the first name of the recipient in the subject line was likely to make a difference. Just talk a bit about the explosion of mobile. Over 50% of emails are now opened on a mobile device. That's overtaking desktop for the first time. Email growth on mobile has increased by 180% in the last 3 years, an enormous growth, and that's expected to grow another 23% this year. So emails need to be readable on a mobile phone. If that's how most people are reading your emails, they need to be viewable on the phone, and that's without pinching and zooming. That sort of really annoying pinching and zooming kind of action you need to take with your thumb and finger in order to actually read it and then scroll across, because that annoys people, and people are not going to read your email if it doesn't have a mobile-ready template. So not only does it need to have a good mobile template, and there's an example there on the right-hand side of how an email would look on a desktop and then how it's reformatted to appear well on a mobile as well. But the copy needs to be as short as possible. People are going to look at really long emails, and sometimes they'll read it if it's an important enough topic, but they need to be concise and to really sort of respect the amount of time that people actually have when they're reading emails on a mobile device. So it's typically when they're, sat at home on the sofa or they're traveling or something like that. So they don't have a great deal of time to take the actions that you want them to take, so try and make sure the copy is as concise as you possibly can. So here's another example of a mobile optimized email, and the call to action you'll notice isn't in button form, but it's a full paragraph that's hyperlinked. So let's give £22 today to help a child like him, and the UK government will double your donation up to £5 million. So that's another way of having a call to action that is really thumb friendly. You're not going to miss that on the mobile screen. But it also gives you an opportunity to give people more reason to give. So on a button, you'll only have space for 2 or 3 words or something like that. If you hyperlink a whole paragraph that way, you can emphasize a real reason to give. In this case, the UK government will double your donation up to £5 million. That's a real reason to give, and a real reason to give soon. So once again, the elements of a great email: strong subject line, short, concise copy, a clear call to action. That's only one if you can do that, as in the examples that we've shown you so far. Making your email really stand out, whether that's through strong copy, strong imagery, or whatever. Making sure it's mobile friendly, so that's short copy as well as really strong copy, and taking the time to actually create that strong copy, because it does take longer. And using the mobile ready or the responsive templates, as it's often known within your email service provider, that can be MailChimp or Dotmailer, and using personalization as much as possible, so making the email appear as relevant as you can to its recipients. So look out in your inboxes for a best practice guide for creating your next email campaign from CAF. They're going to be sending you a fantastic summary of a bit about what we've talked about today. And that's a really sort of good, pithy guide. And if you're able to follow all of the steps within it, then you're going to have a fantastic email marketing success. So look out in your inboxes this week for that. So a bit about measuring success then, before we move on to the final section. If you have an email service provider like MailChimp, then you'll be able to see all of the relevant stats about your email. That's the percentage of people who've opened it, the percentage of people who clicked it, the numbers of people, and even who has opened it and who has clicked it. The great opportunity there is to be able to send follow-up messages to those people who've taken the first step in the action but maybe not completed it. And that's a really great way of making sure you get the most from one email. You send out one email, you can send a follow-up email to the people who didn't open it the first time. You can send a follow-up email to the people who clicked but didn't go on to donate. Creating new segments just from the performance of an email is one of the main reasons that you should move to, if possible, an email service provider like MailChimp and use their free allowance of up to 2,000 subscribers for free. So what other ways can you use email marketing? Well, there's some really great other ways that you can use email, and we're going to talk a bit about how other charities are doing that now. So if you haven't seen the site.org, it's a really great website forum for young people to get advice on everything from sexuality to money and health and relationships. And they have an online forum on there which you can register to sign up and join and get personalized support. So you can post a thread looking for advice, and the other young people and counselors on the site can offer their support. And it's a really fantastic service for young people. And what they wanted to do was to get more people to engage with that community. So they really wanted to encourage them to join a chat, reply to someone else's thread, so that's give support to someone else, or to start a thread themselves where they ask for advice on a problem that they have. So that's something they want all of their new community members to try to do, and they identified that email might be a good way to do that. So we worked with them to create a series of welcome emails, and the purpose of those emails was to take people through that typical journey from a new user, from becoming a new user on the site to becoming a really active member of the community. You can see the topics of the emails on the left there, and you can see what the purpose of them was on the right-hand side. So giving them an introduction to the site, showing them some interesting content, showing them they're not alone with their problem, giving them examples of good news. There is a real purpose to each of those emails, and you can see the first one that we created on the right-hand side. And the purpose of that, again, was just to sort of automate the typical process that people go through when they go onto the site. And the purpose of that, again, was to ensure that email isn't just being used for fundraising or even just campaigning as well, but for service delivery. You know, this is what the organization is there to supply to young people. It's part of their charitable mission. So it was a great way to use email to deliver the service and to provide that much support to as many young people as possible. So the British Heart Foundation as well, they have a great campaign called Wear It, Beat It, where you wear red for a day to help beat heart disease. So the idea is to wear red and host an event on 5th February to help beat heart disease. The more money you raise and the more you will support British Heart Foundation's life-saving research. So again, they'd identified email as a great way to help their fundraisers to meet the challenges, to go through the challenge and to raise even more money. They wanted to keep participants engaged from the point of sign-up to taking part in the fundraising event. They wanted to make sure they were raising as much money as possible. They knew that participants could sign up to the campaign at lots of different times over a 5-month period. So they wanted to make sure they were sending relevant communications to participants no matter what stage they'd signed up at. So they identified email as a really good way of doing that by sort of listing the different stages of the supporter journey, the different content needs they're likely to have at each stage, and delivering them through a series of automated emails. So far, participants were receiving content no matter when they signed up. They've contacted 50% more participants at the right stage of their journey than the previous year, and they're getting lots of engagement in the lead up to the event. And there's a 45% increase in the number of opens at this stage in the campaign. That's more fundraisers feeling supported in their journey, and you have fundraisers out there right now that are, doing very typical events, and they're going to go through lots of different stages in their process from signing up to that event to actually raising the money. And you're going to have different needs from them at those stages on the lines of registration, the information that you need from them, and documentation and so on. So email is a really great way to get that information out to them. And even though it's just sending out information by email, you're actually going to be fundraising at the same time because you're encouraging those fundraisers to raise more money as a result of receiving your info. We also have Change.org. So Change.org obviously is the world's largest online campaigning platform. This is the way they structure one of their emails. Obviously their main conversion, if you like, their call to action is for people to sign petitions on their site. So they structure the emails this way. It's why you should sign, a link to signing it, and then a bit more information about why you should sign, and then a link to sign the petition. And then in the right-hand column, a big summary of the email, and that's structured, why you should sign, and then a link to sign the petition. The whole practice of email with them is really to drive a single action and to be really clear and powerful and forceful about why you should take that action. So they're really clear in their structure approach. They have email updates for whenever there is an update to the petition that you've recently signed, and whenever someone creates an update, the person who started the petition, that email automatically goes out to anyone who signed the petition. So if you've got a petition that's got 5,000 or 10,000 signatories, and the person who wrote the petition or started the petition in the first place, they create an update, here's the latest development on this, then all of those people are going to get an email with that update. And that's a really powerful way to drive even more engagement, to get the people who signed the petition to share it, to get even more signatories, and to drive even more change. So you can see an example of one of those updates here. We delivered your 193,000 signatures to supermarkets with a surprise skip full of food waste. So a really powerful headline there. That's something I want to read more about. And again, it's structured in that same way. There's links to sign the petition. There's links to share the petition even more. They're really clear about the one action they want the recipient of their email to take. They're really clear on the need for people to take that action, and they communicate that as much as possible through their email marketing. So there's a campaign of testing that happens for the change as well. Here's an example of a plan that you might want to create as well. They've created different combinations of action-based emails and signing-based emails and tested those over a period of weeks. Testing is a really great way to improve your email marketing. If you're not getting great results from your email, then I really encourage you to just get a flip chart out, think of all the different types of things that you can test, the different elements of the email that you can test and how you're going to do so, and to just send emails out there that test those different elements, because you will always be surprised about the results. And the more you test, the more you find out what your audience actually reacts best to, and the more likely you are to come up with the sort of magic formula for your cause, for your list, and for your recipients, for them to take action as a result of receiving your emails. So the key takeaways then really, write great subject lines, so making sure that your emails stand out as much as possible. Make your emails concise and action-focused. Try to send more single-issue emails where you can. Use email to support your fundraisers. So we've seen a few examples of that today. The fundraising campaigns that you do or the fundraising events. So make sure that they've got different stages to them, and use email to support them at your fundraisers at those different stages. Use email to support your service users, helping them to get engaged. That's the people who use your online service or even in your offline service. Just alerting people to the content and services you offer on email is really important. Dust on your list with reactivation campaigns. So those are campaigns whereby you look at the list that you have to see how active it is, and to see how many more people you can kind of get on board. And that's a nice thing to do every now and again. Plan your content using a good email calendar. So just sort of plot out where the emails are going to go and what the topics are going to be about. Choose the best email platform for your needs. So that might be MailChimp, it might be Dotmailer, or whatever you like yourself. And make sure you've got permission from your subscribers. So really important to make sure that you're not putting anyone on your list that hasn't actually given you permission. So we're going to talk through a few questions that you might have. So there's still time to ask a few questions. First couple of questions we're just going to discuss are, what do you recommend to be a good subject line length? So this is a really interesting question because emails are opened on so many different devices that the length at which, or the point at which your email subject lines become truncated, that's where they've just put a ... right in the middle of a word sometimes, is going to be different depending on the device that it's opened at. It can be as short as sort of 30-odd characters on some BlackBerries, and when it comes down to sort of mobile phones like iPhones, then that could go up to maybe sort of 60, 80 characters, something like that. And obviously it depends on the email client that you're using as well. So sort of general rule of thumb is try to keep them under 90 characters if you can. Counting by characters can be a bit strange, but definitely something worthwhile trying to achieve. So the next question then, is there a benchmark available of what makes a successful email campaign? So if you use MailChimp in particular, they have some industry benchmarks on there for open rate, click rate, and other things like that for the non-profit kind of charity industry. Some of the stats that you see in some of the American research sound a little bit low compared to the stats that we've seen on the UK-based charities, where open rates can typically be anything between 20% and 30% for a typical email campaign. But that very much depends on the segmentation that you've done. So if you're just segmenting people based on the event that they've signed up to and only sending emails about that event, you should see much higher open rates than that. The other thing to bear in mind is that open rates are determined through a bit of techie wizardry about opening of images on emails when they're sent. If those things are turned off, as they are in some email service providers and some devices, then even though someone's opened your email, that won't be tracked. So it's not to say that only 25% of people who get your emails actually bother to open them. It's really a rule of thumb. So you should be looking to improve those as much as possible. But in terms of benchmarks, between 20 and 30% for open rates, very much depending on the message and the list that you're using. Click-through rates can be as low as 3%, but again, this totally depends what you're asking people to click through to. If you have a really inspiring campaign, really time-limited campaign, and you've given people a really good reason to click through to the link, then it can go up to 15%, 20%. So the fact that not everyone actually opens emails and actually takes those actions, that shows how important it is to make sure the copy is really strong. Because they might not actually donate or take the campaigning action straight away, but they will have seen your message, and they may go on to take the action if they see the message perhaps on social media or online through other sources. So it's really important to not sort of have all your eggs in the web basket, as it were. So try and get your message across in the body of the email. Don't save everything for the website that they're clicking through to, and you'll see those benchmarking rates on MailChimp website, I believe, and you'll see them elsewhere. But the thing to remember with that is you're only ever competing against yourself. You might see some higher rates than those benchmarking figures or lower rates, but if you're starting at 15% open rates, then that's where you're starting from. And great success is going to be 20% and 25%, not that kind of 30% figure. So I think we've got a few more questions as well. I've heard the EU may require personal info held by charities must be stored in the EU. How will this affect charities who use services like MailChimp, which presumably store mailing lists on a US server? Yeah, it's the Safe Harbor Agreement was the relevant agreement here, whereby information could be stored outside the EU on this Safe Harbor Agreement, as long as stored in a safe place. Essentially, there was talk of revising that, I believe, in the last year, but I haven't seen any more updates on that. UK charities can certainly use servers like MailChimp to store their information. There's no problem with that at the moment. When that legislative environment changes, then we'll certainly know all about it. So our main challenge is building a list of subscribers. Obviously, that's a really key challenge. You need to have people to send the emails to. What I would say is make sure you give people a reason to subscribe. So, if you have a little sign-up box on your website that says sign up to our newsletter, that's not really a very inspiring thing to say. But if you say sign up to our weekly list of tips around whatever your cause happens to be, sign up to join the fight against whatever your cause is, then you're much more likely to get people to actually do so. And then it's about thinking, what events can I get people to sign up to our email list, build subscribers that way, and just to be creative about the ways that people can get on your email list. The key thing is to make it clear what they're going to get out of being on your email list, and if they're not going to get enough out of it, then have a think about what you're sending on those emails. Next question then, if you don't have the first name of a person but have their email address, will it look odd in MailChimp? For example, if you have first names within the text, or will it be blank? Will it affect spacing? So yes, it does. If you have an incomplete list where you have the email address but not the name, and you use some personalization like using the first name, then it will show up just as a blank space. So the key thing to do there is to try and update all of your email addresses with the first name so that doesn't happen. That's just about making sure your data is right, about making sure your data is complete. The other way of avoiding it, I guess, is to limit the amount of personalization that you do, so and make it make sense with a blank space. So your salutation, rather than using dear at the start, because if that doesn't have a first name, it'll just say the word dear, which might look a bit odd, but to say something like, good morning or good afternoon, which makes sense without the first name as well. So next question then is, we get good open rates, but how do we get more conversions? Well, that's the million-dollar question, really. The thing about conversions it's not really an email marketing question per se. All email can do is send people through to the website where they will take the conversion. So then it's down to the website to kind of complete the job, and that's a customer experience question, it's a user experience question, it's how convincing the copy is on there, it's how responsive the website actually is. So there's lots of different questions that need to be answered there. You need to make sure that the reason to take the action is very clear. You need to make sure that the call to action is above the fold, as it were, so that's viewable in the first screen of the first screen, if you like, of the website that they get to, and just make it as clear as possible what someone is going to achieve by taking that action. So what is good open rate percentage? Yes, so as I mentioned, it will depend on your list and it depends on the message and all of that, but we would say between sort of 20 and 30%, anything above 30%, and you've got a really healthy list, I'd suggest. You'll find you get better open rates the more targeted your communications are. So if you only ask people to sort of sign up to an email list based on the sort of service they've signed up to or the campaign they're taking part in, they're more likely to open your emails, and you'll get a higher open rate. So we have a CAF Donate question, which is, how can CAF Donate help my fundraising? So what I'm going to do now is just hand over to Julie, who's the CAF Donate person on the webinar. Not my area, but I know that you are, so I'll pass it over to you.
Great, and Matt, that's a great question. So CAF Donate allows charities to actually set up their own donation pages online, and they're able to brand the donation pages with their logo and also enter the amount that people might want to donate and what that amount will pay for. It also allows charities to upload card and direct debit donations that they may receive in the post or on the phone. So again, a great way to set up direct debits from donors that come in through the post or on the phone. And if you want to sign up for it, go to our website, and we also have a great telephone team who can also talk you through the benefits and help you to set up your donation pages online.
Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, so some more email questions. How often should you communicate via email to supporters? Monthly, quarterly, etc.? Well, the answer is more than you're doing so now is just a kind of blanket answer there. It very much depends on the type of email. There is one email that I get which is kind of a sort of short blog email, and it comes every day, and I open it every day because the content is just that great. So there's no kind of right or wrong answer. If you send emails every couple of weeks, then you're not sending too many emails, I would say. Probably I'd say 98% of organizations send too few. And you really need to be handing people sort of multiple times a day to be sending too many emails. So definitely not quarterly. That's not often enough, because even if people don't say so, permission does expire. They might forget who you are if you don't send them emails regularly enough. So I would say at least monthly, but it definitely will vary. But if you're sort of asking the question, more, I'd say, is the sort of summary answer. So what do you mean by segmenting your emails? So yes, sorry, I should be a bit clear on that. Let's say you have a list of 10,000 people. If you just send the same message to 10,000 people every month, then you're not segmenting anything. If you take that 10,000 people and break it down into, say, 4 segments, that's 4 groups, 4 equal-sized groups based on how they heard about you. They might be past fundraisers, they might be campaigners, service users, whatever it happens to be, and divide them up into sub-lists and just send more relevant emails to those sub-lists. So, for example, only fundraising emails to your fundraisers, only service-based emails to your service users, then you're going to see better results. So if I live in South London, and if someone puts me in a South London segment, I'm much more likely to open those emails because they're more relevant to me. So yeah, break your list down into smaller sizes based on interest and things like that. What page size of email is best so it doesn't overload the reader? Very much depends on kind of the template, and it will vary massively depending on the service provider that someone is using to read the emails. So I would just recommend that you use responsive template as much as possible, because it's very difficult to kind of see what your email is going to look like on every single device that it might be opened on. So to do that as much as possible. Do email providers automatically filter messages with emojis? Well, no is the answer to that. Certainly not yet. But junk mail settings will be different depending on what service provider you're using. I've not seen any messages, certainly in Gmail, be routed to the junk mail folder just by virtue of having an emoji in it. There's going to be other factors in there that draw them into the junk mail folder. So again, the only way is to test, I would say. So if you wanted to test that subject line, you could send one group of supporters a subject line which is just a normal text-based subject line, and another one which has the same text-based subject line but also has an emoji in there, and see which one gets the higher delivery rates. If the delivery rates are the same, then you know that there's not a problem for most of the supporters on your list. So am I saying .mailer as an email provider? Yes, that's what I'm saying. So as in .com, and then mailer, M-A-I-L-E-R. So just Google .mailer, then you'll see that service is there. I believe also the Charities Technology guys have a great discount for that particular service for charities. So I recommend you check that out as well, as much as possible. So listen, we have loads more questions, but we haven't really got enough time to answer absolutely all of them. But we do just have one other CAF Donate question, so I'm just going to hand back over then to Judy, who's going to answer that question, and then we're going to wrap up the webinar.
So the question was, is CAF Donate now compatible with Apple? So yes, it does work on all mobiles, and it also works on Safari, which I think is probably the question. We're also over the next few months making the donation experience responsive, so it'll be a lot better experience on mobile and tablets for people that are donating. And just a reminder, it's also available on Facebook as well, which is another unique feature. So look out for lots of exciting new changes for the donation experience of CAF Donate over the next few months.
Okay, so we're just going to try and answer just one more question here. I've only sent one fundraising email. Just started doing this at our charity, as many of our database are more mature and not usually web savvy. Is there a way to make it easier for them or to attract them to open the email? Will we get the slideshow sent? Yes, you'll get a link to the slideshow sent in your inbox. So when it comes to older users, I mean, this is a difficult question to answer because different users are different, and grouping them just by age alone can miss out some other factors, like some pretty tech-savvy people. My dad in particular is the most tech-savvy guy I know. So all I can say is to try and find out as much as possible about them and their interests to get them to open them. If they don't check their email and you don't give them a good reason to open an email from you, then it's going to be really difficult for them to actually open the email or to get more response rates from them. So yeah, that's all I can say on that. So sorry if we haven't answered your question in the webinar, then do email us and we will send you a response. Just a final word to say thank you very much to CAF. Here are all the contact details for CAF. Do follow CAF online on Twitter. There's the website there as well, and the YouTube channel. And if you have any final questions, then do tweet them or send them to that email address. And if you've got any questions on CAF Donate, then there's the email address as well. So thanks very much for your attention today, and hopefully that was really useful. And as I said, if you've got any questions, then please feel free to contact us through one of those questions. My name's Matt. I'm from Platypus Digital, and thanks for your attention today.